I was talking earlier about the 60s scoop, and I was cut off literally mid-sentence by I don't know if you could hear it. There was a fight outside. It's broad daylight. Well, it was then. It's towards the evening now. But this kind of thing starts to be happening with more regularity here. I'm right next to the park, and I tried to close the window, and then the camera went off, and it got all shaky. That's what happened. I was going to do it, as I put in my little posting. I was going to just refilm, and I thought, no, it kind of goes with the whole territory about real life and what happens. So just the other morning, too, there was a boy out here right in front of the place, in front of our bedroom window, and he was all tangled up, literally tangled up everywhere, all over his body in wire. It wasn't barbed wire, but it was wire. And he had a broken bike that was completely messed up too with wire. So, and he was cursing and screaming, and this went on for quite a while, maybe 30, 40 minutes. I don't know what's going on here, but it was very, very odd. It looked like maybe he had passed out somewhere and someone just thought it was funny to completely cover him with wire. I don't understand what was going on, but this kind of thing is happening too much here recently. But to the 60s scoop then. When I did go to the Ancestry DNA and found some of my relatives, and again, all of this ties into trauma. Well, of course, it's traumatic. And people don't understand. Maybe they don't want to understand. I once heard an Amish minister say, a lot of understanding has to do with wanting to understand. And I believe there's a great deal of truth in that. And a lot of settlers and lawyers, people like that, they don't want to understand. And this helps them in their denial, I think, and that's what it is. So I recall being how happy I was to have found someone for my family, and then to slowly hear about them, and then visiting the cemetery there, where like in who's oh that's your cousin. Well, he's so young. He was 25. Yeah, he committed suicide. And this one, yeah, they committed suicide. And this one, oh, she was murdered. And then going through being shown my family tree and learning, it wasn't all in a day. I mean, the cemetery was obviously, but then the rest. So what happened to so and so? No, she just disappeared. Hasn't been heard from in years. And then it went down the list, like another one and another one and another one. And try to think of the survivors and what this does to you. You think all of these people are missing for years and years. No one has heard from them or of them has a clue about where they are. This takes a toll on a person, you know. And not to mention the other people, you know, you think every single day. A day does not pass. A day, several hours don't pass when I don't think about them. What happened to them? Where are they? I hope if something happened, it was quick and merciful and peaceful. So there's just no, I don't know, obviously there's no happy end. I was going to say no end, and I don't think there is an end until there's a resolution in all of these things. Again, thank God for something like Ancestry DNA, and that's just the one I use. You know that there are others. Unfortunately, that's also the ones that I don't know. You know, I've got to ask my cousin if she had used more than one. I never asked her that since we connected on Ancestry, and it hasn't been that long, really. And time kind of muddles in your mind, doesn't it? Especially since COVID, it did something funny with our minds. I sometimes think, oh, this happened last summer, and then someone will say, no, that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and you begin, oh, yeah, that's right. My goodness. I don't know if part of that is age, or I think it's a combination of a lot of things, really. A lot of information and COVID and so on. So I wanted to share a little bit with you about the collectiva and the letters and what happened with the lawsuit, if the settlement, which I don't think was much of a settlement. I think I've said that before. And I think for the people who did not apply, I know someone who changed households 5 times. He's a distant relative, like maybe a fourth cousin of mine. He changed households 4 times, and he applied, and he was refused. And I think, like my first refusal, I've heard from other people that they also got this. I think this might have been part of like the scheme of things, because none of these people then bothered to contest it. They just thought, oh well, it's over. I did contest it though, and I did, well, get my big whopping 21,000 for all the good it's worth. And it's not what they promised at all, but whatever is with these people. And I just feel badly for these people, because also that didn't try again to approach the collectiva, but they were told that you won't get it, right? And the reasons why. So I guess they just grew discouraged. Well, I was too that day. I was so despondent. And when I came back, there's a story about the letter. I saw the letter there when we got back from Mexico. And my spouse said, here, there's a letter for you. And I'm like, oh, it's from the, no, never mind. And I was offered it several times and just said, no, I'm not going to open it. I know what it says. And then finally I was asked one morning, it was at my breakfast plate, is this how you're going to handle it? Just ignore it? And I said, yep, that is exactly how I'm going to handle it. So it was opened for me and read out loud. And that's the letter that awarded me the small sum of money and said that my case was settled and listened to. So if it weren't for that, I actually did think I picked it up and just dropped it into the trash, and then my spouse retrieved it and brought it back and opened it and read it. So that was my part of the 60s scoop. There's so much more to say about it. There hasn't been a really great, I think, resource. There have been articles that are good, autobiographical articles about it, and other articles about the 60s scoop, but there isn't yet something written that's been I think a good single source book about it. There's a lot to cover because it really began in 1954, and that was more the difference between welfare and the 60s scoop and adoptions was that someone will give a child up for adoption, right, for whatever reason. I'm not saying it's always pleasant or that it's better. I know it isn't. Easier for the person to do that. The 60s scoop, though, was against the parents' and families' will. And a lot of the times it wasn't because the person was not able to keep the child or there was an abusive relationship or something like that. It had nothing to do with that. It was strictly to break the nation and break the will of our nation. That's why it was done. And there was this understanding, too, on the reserve that you didn't ask people when you went with them, or even when you married them. You didn't ask them if you avoided this situation, this question entirely, just because maybe they did not give up, had a child stolen and spouse gone, missing. You didn't know always. Sometimes you did, but sometimes you didn't. So there came to be kind of a silence around it, right? You didn't ask, you didn't talk, and that's what you had to do to survive. And I think one of the things about trauma, in my opinion, is it makes one so selfish because all you're trying to do really is to survive the day and the time, right? You're just trying to think, how do I get through today? How do I get through this situation without being re-traumatized? And there are a few programs I like that are culturally sensitive. What I appreciate about these is they don't keep electronic records, and that's because of our long history of people being able to hack into files and look into our files. It's no one's business at all. No one should be using your medical records for anything, period, unless it's a doctor because you need an operation or something. But no, they shouldn't. Or unless anyway, malpractice perhaps. That And they don't ask you to keep retelling your story because that doesn't do any good. I know that I did go to a support group once, and that was the first thing. You're supposed to tell your story. And I just thought, no, I'm not going to go through this again in every detail. For whom? Who benefits from this? I don't. And do you? I don't think so. Maybe settlers sometimes need to hear it. And that's why I feel at times it's good to hear a spoken testimony. And I've learned to be able to do it and distance myself. Maybe that's part of my problem. I distance myself too much. But to be able to tell it as if it's somebody else telling the story. And that's the only way I can really tell it. So I will look for some other resources and articles. As I said, they're few and far between, and I will tack them under the video for you.